Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Michael Heslop Review. All right, so guys, today, as you guys know, I've started my own small business. It's called MPH Organics, and it will be on Instagram and it will also be on TikTok. So you can go on TikTok and just type in MPH, the letter MPH Organics, and we are now on TikTok and Instagram at MPH Organics, right? You can also follow my personal page, which is Michael Heslop Review on Instagram and so forth. Basically, for more, if you want to know who I am and more in depth, I'll also have videos where basically I show my faces in this. It's just that this video we're getting straight to the bad boys because I'm getting a lot of requests and questions basically asking me about these guys. All right, so guys, as you know, recently we were impacted here in Jamaica by a strong category 5 hurricane by the name of Melissa, and it basically wiped out a lot of crops, including one which is a Scotch bonnet pepper and a lot of other crops as well. But these guys are now in the market for like 6,000 and 5,000 and some a crazy amount of money per pound. So a lot of people basically are wondering about Scotch bonnet. Why are they so expensive? Why are they so expensive in the market? Why is the price not coming down? And why it is so basically so scarce? All right, so there's a reason for that, and that reason basically is that Scotch bonnet peppers are heat worshippers. So you see the sunlight coming out, that's what they want. They love the heat. They love warm temperatures, and the warm temperatures protect them from their main predators, which are mites and also cutters. So mites basically is a form of insect that attaches itself to these Scotch bonnet peppers and they lay their eggs. So mites comes into different form basically. They are the babies of bats. So those little bats that you see some flying around sometimes, they lay their babies on these, and they normally lay their babies under the bottom of these plants, like on the bottom of the leaves, so they'll be protected from the heat of the sun and so forth. When they germinate, they will come out hungry. You know, you're just born, you're gonna want something to eat, and so these nice chewable leaves basically are what they prefer. So normally when Scotch bonnet peppers get, or peppers in general basically gets bigger, the leaves becomes very tough and hardened because it have gone through the hardening stage, and so the leaves are not that chewable. They're still chewable, you know, but they're not as nice as how you guys, as how they would want it basically. Just like how we have a specific foods that we like, they have specific food that they like as well. Not to say that they won't attack your larger peppers and eat them, but they prefer these smaller babies coming up, right? So normally farmers in Jamaica, they would plant their peppers or the, country peppers or Scotch bonnet peppers in the time 2 months before the frost period, and the frost period basically begins in the period of November, late November, going into December and early January. So they will plant their peppers basically before that time period to avoid them going through that period where they'll be more susceptible to predators like mites and aphids and all of that stuff. Now, Hurricane Melissa came in the end of October. I think it was the 28th or the 29th of October. You guys can correct me in the comments. Basically, it was around that time. So the Ministry of Agriculture would have initiated a pilot project to assist farmers basically to recover from what has happened in Hurricane Melissa. And that was, I think, 2 weeks after the passing of the storm, because they would have to evaluate and to find out what farmers used to do, what crops they used to specialize in, the level of damage, and all of that. So once that was done, basically, they would have then started to initiate the project where they would partner with RADA and other Jamaica Bauxite Company and all that to basically provide farmers with seedlings. So these farmers would have been getting seedlings within November time period, which is the beginning stage of the frost period. So these new seedlings would be planted in a time when the time would be generally cold, because we're going into the Christmas season where you get cold fronts and all that stuff. So in that time, basically, these guys will be susceptible to these conditions. So they're going to grow up in a time when their main predators are going to be out. So that is why you see a lot of farmers who buy their Scotch bonnet peppers, they have to be spraying, they have to be fertilizing just to make sure that the crops survive into January when the time gets more warmer. And even with that, because sometimes the climate change is so drastic nowadays, we're getting a lot of on and off showers in December, where you would find that basically these plants are now getting water. So when you spray them, then the rain comes and the water basically washes off the pesticide that you would have sprayed on these guys to protect themselves from aphids and other things like that. So because of that now, it's an ongoing battle with for the farmers to protect their Scotch bonnet peppers to even make it to maturity, because these guys, they bear, for regular Scotch bonnet peppers, they bear within 3 months after germination. So after they germinate out a seed and come out and properly firm, they would bear 3 months. Hybrids bear within 2 months. So as you can see, this guy right here, it's a 8-week old Scotch bonnet pepper from germination. So it's basically 2 months old, but because of lack of sun, it would if it would have gotten the amount of sun that it would have naturally needed, even being a hybrid, it would have probably started the flowering stage basically, but it would be 1 week behind or 2 week behind. So this guy probably would start bearing around 2 weeks from now. As you can see, it has already shoot its second stage of leaves, which are going to become branches, and then after that, you know that it's going into the flowering stage, and then might do a growth spurt from that. So after that period, basically, so because of that, as I was saying before, these farmers now face a challenge where they have a crop that requires heat, that's going to be planted in a time that's going to be very, very cold, and they would have not passed a certain stage as yet. So because of that, the prices for Scotch bonnet peppers are going to be very high because it's a very scarce commodity. Now I do have Scotch bonnet peppers that are around 6 or 8 months old. I bought about 15 of them basically that would have survived Melissa. So I have been supplying and selling off of that, and then I have about 50 of these guys basically, and 50 sweet peppers in trays, 50 in ground, and 50 sweet peppers and 50 hot peppers also in grounds. So 50 in pots, 50 in grounds, and basically we're going to be using that. That is because I have a small greenhouse that cannot take on a large amount of these guys, so we limit it down to 50 basically. Right. So one of the ways that we have been able to protect our peppers and sweet peppers from this is basically providing natural fertilizer and natural pesticides that kind of trick the aphids and trick the insects basically. So when we do that basically, we then train them basically to attack one specific leaf, and that one specific leaf now would be eaten by them, and then we basically would pluck it during the pruning stage basically. So these guys are kept indoors until they reach a stage when they can actually go through the process of pruning. When they go through the pruning stage basically, we can clip their leaves and they would react basically by, you know, giving out new leaves. As you can see with this one right here, would have gone through some amount of pruning already. Let me just focus the camera there so you guys can see. All right, so that's what we mean basically. So that's the process that we have done. As you can see, this guy, which is a 2 months old sweet pepper, basically has gone through that process, and as you can see, it's 2 months old and it's not bearing. It's now shooting out small blossoms. That is what we like to see, because it's supposed to be basically shooting out blossom spores at 3 months old. So this is basically right on time. All it needs now is just basically the sunlight to captivate and cause it to shoot upward, which I'm sure it will be doing, because we have been doing the pruning process, as you can see there, which it's now spreading new, sorry, as you can see there, where it will be spreading new leaves and coming up. All right, so you start pruning basically at around 3 weeks. So these Scotch bonnet peppers, these sweet peppers basically are 2 weeks old. So by next week, we will just take our fingers and we'll pluck these leaves here to cause it to start to spew out. We do it both for both sweet peppers and Scotch bonnet, and the reason for that is that we want them to grow broader to give us a larger yield, right? And that's how we go about that process. So as you can see, basically we have some natural fertilizer that we give them here. This one would have gotten fertilizer that would contain a lot of potassium that these need at this stage to develop them. And then as they get older, we then add potassium and phosphorus that they need as well. And when they reach this stage, we start to add a lot of potassium, phosphorus, and also nitrogen, which is very, very important in the hardening stage. Don't forget that, because a lot of farmers lose their sweet peppers, hot peppers, basically during the hardening stage, because that's when they're mostly gonna get attacked by the cutters and so forth, as you see basically. So this one has now gone through fully the hardening stage, and now is now a 10-week old. So it just basically needs sunlight for it to basically just shoot up and start its process of production. Right. So a lot of other persons have been asking me what is called first bearing, second bearing, and all that stuff. So the reason for that is that basically when they just start out, the first bearing is the first production cycle of a plant. So they would blossom over a period of 3 to 4 weeks, and then that would form fruit. So you would see fruit there and it's still blossoming, and fruit there. Once that process is done, it's called the first bearing. And I will go into more information into that in the next video.